The chestnut Mustang was agonizing, tied on the deserted highway. Robert Castillo sped up his BMW. Animal problems weren't his concern. But when he saw the mist-shrouded mountains in the distance, something in his chest turned cold. What he discovered in that place changed everything forever. Before we begin this story of redemption, tell me where you're watching from and hit like if you believe it's never too late for a second chance. Ready? Let's go. Robert Castillo watched the man across from him sweat as he nervously flipped through papers with trembling hands. 62 years old, an agribusiness billionaire, Robert had built his empire on a simple philosophy: feelings don't pay bills, compassion doesn't move markets. Mr. Olson, you had 6 months to settle the debt. His voice cut through the air conditioning like a blade. Now I need the land. My family has been here for 3 generations, Mr. Castillo. My son is about to graduate. He can help. Robert interrupted with a gesture. 15 days to vacate. My lawyers will handle the details. He stood, adjusted his Italian suit. In his jacket pocket, his cell phone vibrated insistently. Calls he'd ignored for months. His ex-wife, probably, or someone wanting to talk about Marina. 8 years later, they still couldn't understand that subject was dead and buried. Olson was still murmuring pleas as Robert exited the room. In the mirrored elevator, he observed his own reflection. Perfectly aligned grey hair, artificially tanned skin, eyes that had shown nothing for almost a decade, exactly as he'd planned. 2 hours later, he was driving back to Denver, Colorado on State Highway 17, where he would finalize the purchase of 5 more properties the following morning. The GPS indicated an alternative route due to roadwork on the main highway. Robert huffed in annoyance. He hated unforeseen events, hated straying from his planned route, but he followed the secondary road, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through mountains covered in persistent mist. That's when he saw it. A large, dark animal partially blocked the narrow lane. Robert slowed down, annoyed. A horse, he realized now. Chestnut, thin, with a white crescent-shaped mark on its forehead. Thick ropes cruelly bound its body, cutting into the skin where the animal had struggled to free itself. Its front legs were tied, forcing it into a painful, unstable position. His first impulse was to honk and wait for the animal to move. Robert kept the engine running, AC on full blast, fingers drumming on the steering wheel, but the horse didn't move. It couldn't move. He looked around. Deserted road. Silent mountains covered by mist that seemed to have a life of its own. That landscape. There was something unsettling about it. Familiar yet threatening. Like a melody one recognizes but cannot name. The horse turned its head towards the car. Its dark eyes met Robert's through the windshield. There was no plea there, no dramatics, just a weary acceptance. As if it knew its fate depended on a stranger's goodwill. Robert turned off the engine, not out of compassion, never for that. But because he needed to pass, because he had appointments, because this situation was an obstacle between him and his plans. He got out of the car, felt the cold mountain wind cut through his expensive suit. Up close, the horse was larger than he'd imagined. A wild Mustang, he realized now, from the defined muscles under its matted coat, from its proud stance, even in its degrading condition. It had never been domesticated. That was obvious in the way it tensed every muscle as Robert approached. Using his car key, he began to cut the ropes, one by one, methodically, without haste. The animal didn't move, only watched with eyes that seemed to hold ancient stories. When the last rope gave way, the Mustang hesitated for a moment. Then it moved away, testing its legs, shaking its head. It looked at Robert one last time before disappearing up the mountain. Robert returned to his car with dirty clothes and a small cut on his hand. He sped away without looking back, but the image of those eyes followed him down the misty road long after the mountain disappeared in his rearview mirror. The next morning, Robert was finalizing contracts on his ranch's porch when he heard hooves. He looked up from his laptop and felt something tighten in his chest. It was him, the chestnut Mustang from the road, now clean from the night's rain, the white mark on its forehead gleaming under the morning sun. But it wasn't alone. Two foals accompanied it, small and curious, staying close to the mare who walked a few yards behind. Robert remained motionless. The horse approached the wrought iron gate, stopped, and stared at him directly. There was no fear in its posture nor submission. It was as if it had come to fulfill an obligation. "Mr. Castillo," John, the foreman, appeared beside the porch, following Robert's gaze. "These aren't our horses. They must be Mustangs from the valley." "From the valley?" Robert repeated without taking his eyes off the animal. "Yes, sir. There's a wild herd that lives in the mountains of Dry Valley. They rarely come down this far." John scratched his head, confused. "I don't know what this one wants." Dry Valley. Robert felt something turn cold in his veins. He knew that name, but from where? The Mustang took a step toward the gate and slowly lowered its head. It stretched its neck through the iron bars and gently rested its forehead on Robert's outstretched arm, which he hadn't even realized he'd raised from the chair. The touch was brief, almost ceremonial. When it pulled away, the horse looked at him once more before turning and beginning to walk away with its small family. "John," Robert heard his own voice as if from a distance, "put hay by the gate and water for them." "Sir, you heard me." Throughout the meeting with the lawyers, Robert found himself looking out the window, searching for the horses. When he finally managed to concentrate on the contracts, he realized he was being less aggressive in negotiations. He accepted terms he'd normally reject, agreed to longer deadlines. One of his partners commented, surprised, about his new flexibility. By late afternoon, the Mustangs had returned. They ate the hay, drank the water, and remained near the gate until nightfall. Robert watched them from the porch, a cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. That night, for the first time in 8 years, he dreamed of Marina. Not the usual nightmare, the accident, the screams, the hospital. This time she was a child again, running through her grandfather's ranch fields, laughing as she chased something he couldn't see. He woke with his heart pounding, but not from terror. It was a different sensation, a restlessness he couldn't name. The next morning, the horses were there again, and the next, and the one after that. Robert began to schedule his mornings around those silent encounters. He canceled a trip to New York City, postponed a major acquisition. When questioned, he said he was re-evaluating strategies. The truth was, he couldn't stop thinking about Dry Valley. The name echoed in his mind like a distant bell. One morning, while the Mustang and its family grazed near the gate, Robert picked up the phone and called his personal assistant. "Mark, I need you to research a property for me, a place called Dry Valley. I want to know everything. Ownership history, transactions, anything you can find. May I ask why, sir?" Robert watched the Mustang raise its head, as if it had heard the conversation. Those dark eyes seemed to hold secrets he was only beginning to suspect. "Just research it," he said, and hung up before his voice betrayed the confusion he felt growing within his chest. The report arrived 3 days later. Robert opened it in the solitude of his office, with the Mustang and its family visible through the window, grazing peacefully near the gate. Dry Valley, rural property of 100 acres. Last transaction, 2016. Seller, Marina Castillo. Robert dropped the papers. Marina. His daughter, Marina. With trembling hands, he continued reading. The property had been inherited by Marina when she turned 18, a gift from her paternal grandfather that Robert hadn't even known existed. She had lived there during the last 2 years of her life, between 2015 and 2017, a time when Robert was deeply engrossed in aggressive business expansions and barely spoke to his daughter. There was more, records of donations to wild animal sanctuaries, notes on local wildlife preservation, and a letter attached to the legal documents, handwritten by Marina shortly before her death. Dad, if you're reading this, it's because something happened to me and you finally took an interest in where I lived. Dry Valley isn't just a property, it's a refuge, for me and for the mustangs that live free in the mountains. Every day I fed them, cared for the injured, protected the foals. They became my family when I couldn't be a part of yours anymore. Robert stopped reading. His breathing was uneven, his hands cold with sweat. Marina had lived alone in that valley for 2 years. 2 years in which he had been too busy building his empire, buying land, destroying families like Olson's. 2 years in which she had tried to call, tried to visit, tried to reconnect with the father who had become a stranger. He continued reading with a broken heart. The Mustangs taught me about real family, about protection, loyalty, about being present when someone needs you. I hope one day you understand that. I hope one day you stop running from who you used to be, the dad who took me to see horses when I was little, who told me stories about how they choose their families. Robert stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. He paced his office like a caged animal. Through the window, he saw the Mustang raise its head as if sensing his anguish. He picked up the phone, dialed the number of the company that had bought Dry Valley. "This is Robert Castillo. You purchased a property in Dry Valley in 2016. I want to buy it back." "Mr. Castillo, that land is being prepared for mining. The current market value, I don't care about the value. Name your price." 2 hours later, Robert was driving down the same misty road where he had found the Mustang. This time, he knew his destination. The GPS guided him along a winding dirt road up the mountain until he reached what remained of Dry Valley. The simple house where Marina had lived was still standing, but the fields were marked with the mining company's stakes. Huge tractors had begun excavating near the creek, where he now imagined the Mustangs came to drink. On the porch of the house, he found more letters from Marina and photographs, dozens of them showing his daughter feeding wild horses, healing injuries, playing with foals. In one of the photos, she stood beside a pregnant chestnut mare with a white mark on its forehead. Robert collapsed into the rocking chair where Marina had spent her last days. For the first time in 8 years, he cried. He cried for the daughter he had lost twice, once to death, once to his own coldness. He cried for the lost time, the unanswered calls, the hugs he had never given. When he looked up, the Mustang was there, alone this time, standing a few yards from the porch, watching him with those eyes he now knew were the same ones that had comforted his daughter in life. The horse approached slowly, stretched its neck, and rested its head on Robert's shoulder, and it remained there motionless, while the man who had lost everything finally began to understand what truly mattered. Robert remained in Dry Valley until nightfall, reading every letter, every note Marina had left. He discovered that she had created a small, informal sanctuary, treating injured horses and protecting the herd from illegal hunters. He discovered that she had tried to contact him dozens of times in the last months of her life, calls he had ignored for being too busy. The final letter, dated a week before the accident, was the one that completely destroyed him. "Dad, I know you won't read this now, but I hope one day you will. I'm not angry that you chose business over me. I'm sad, but I understand. You always said you were building all this to give me a better future, but I don't need money, Dad. I need you. The Mustangs taught me that family is about being present, about protecting those we love. Tomorrow I'll try calling one more time. Please answer." Robert remembered that call. He was in a meeting with Japanese investors. He saw her name on the screen, hesitated for a second, then rejected the call. "Business can't wait," he had told himself. 3 days later, Marina was dead. He returned to the main ranch with a broken heart and a decision formed. The next morning, he cancelled the expansion meeting that was worth $10 million. His partners called furious. "Robert, have you lost your mind? We've worked 2 years on this deal." "Find another partner," he replied and hung up. Over the next week, Robert made a series of calls that shocked the agribusiness market. He cancelled the forced purchase of the Olson family's land. More than that, he returned the lands he had taken from 3 other families in the last 5 years, paying for the improvements he had made out of his own pocket. "Mr. Castillo," his lawyer tried to argue, "you're losing money unnecessarily. These people signed contracts. Contracts I forced desperate people to sign." Robert cut him off. John, the foreman, observed the changes with perplexity. "Mr. Castillo, you've been different, ever since those horses showed up." "Different how?" "More present, you know, as if you'd returned from a very long journey." Robert looked out the window. The Mustang was there, as every day, but this time it had brought the entire herd. 12 wild horses grazed peacefully near the gate, including mares with foals and an elderly stallion that seemed to lead the group. That afternoon, Robert received a call that would change everything. "Mr. Castillo, this is Anna, Mr. Olson's daughter. I wanted to thank you for returning our land, but I also wanted to tell you something about your daughter." Robert felt the air leave his lungs. "What about Marina?" "She showed up here a few times in the last months before the accident. She said she was trying to find families who had lost their land. She wanted to help. She said she was trying to fix some mistakes that she hoped you would change. Marina did that?" "Yes, sir. She paid for my sibling's school for 6 months out of her own money. She said that one day you would understand that family is about protecting each other, not about always winning." Robert hung up and headed to the gate where the Mustangs waited. The horse he had rescued approached, and this time Robert extended his hand, gently touching its velvety muzzle. "Luna," he murmured, remembering the white mark on its forehead. "That's what I'll call you." For the first time in 8 years, Robert smiled. A small, broken, but real smile. He had much to fix, much to repair, but he was no longer alone. Marina had left a family for him, a family that understood about second chances, about forgiveness, about being present when someone needed you. That night, Robert slept soundly for the first time since his daughter's death, and he dreamed of her laughing as she ran through fields alongside wild horses, free and at home. 6 months later, Robert was unrecognizable. He had sold 3 of his 15 ranches and used the money to create the Marina Castillo Foundation, dedicated to the protection of wild horses and support for struggling rural families. Dry Valley had been transformed into the state's first official Mustang sanctuary. Luna and her herd now lived freely on the restored lands, with regular veterinary care and protection from hunters. Robert spent at least 3 days a week in the valley, personally overseeing their care and learning about equine behavior. "I've never seen anything like it," commented Dr. Evans, the wild horse veterinarian specialist. "She recognizes you from a distance. Mustangs take years to trust humans like that." Robert watched Luna graze with the foals that had been born in the sanctuary. She had become the unofficial matriarch of the herd, protecting the younger ones and maintaining order with a natural wisdom that impressed him. The transformation hadn't been easy. His former partners sued him for breach of contract. He lost half his fortune in settlements and restitutions. His ex-wife, Helen, initially suspicious of the changes, had started talking to him again. "Robert, what's happening to you?" she had asked during a visit to the sanctuary. "I'm trying to be the man our daughter thought I could be," he replied, watching Luna teach a foal to drink from the creek. But the deepest change had happened the previous week. Robert had tracked down Michael Stone, a 67-year-old widower who had lost his small rural property to him 3 years prior. The man now worked as a caretaker on a distant ranch, far from his children and grandchildren. Robert found him on a rainy afternoon, carrying hay too heavy for his age. "Mr. Stone?" Michael looked up, recognized Robert, and immediately lowered his head. "Mr. Castillo, if you've come to collect something, I've come to return something." Robert extended an envelope. "The deed to your old property, in your name. No conditions." Michael opened the envelope with trembling hands. "I don't understand. Your land should never have been mine. I stole it when you were vulnerable, taking advantage of your wife's medical debt." Robert took a deep breath. "I can't bring your wife back, nor recover the lost years, but I can return what was always yours." Michael stared at him for a long moment. There was no forgiveness in his eyes, but there was something akin to surprise. "Why now?" "Because I learned that you don't take anything with you when you die, Mr. Stone. You only leave things behind." Robert looked at the mountains in the distance. "And I want to leave something other than pain." That week, Robert restituted 5 more properties. Not everyone forgave him. Some simply took the deeds and slammed the door in his face. Others, like Mrs. Carmen, a 74-year-old woman, invited him for coffee and talked about second chances. "My granddaughter always said everyone deserves a chance to do things differently," Mrs. Carmen had commented. "I think she'd be proud to see you trying." At the end of that exhausting week, Robert returned to Dry Valley and found Luna waiting at the sanctuary gate. She approached and, as she always did now, rested her head on his shoulder. Robert closed his eyes and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: peace. "Thank you," he murmured to the mayor who had changed his life. "Thank you for showing me the way back home." Luna neighed softly, as if she understood. Then she moved away to join her family, grazing peacefully under the starry sky of the valley where Marina had found her own peace years before. Robert smiled. He still had a lot of work ahead, much to repair, but for the first time in 8 years, he felt it was worth trying. 2 years passed. Robert, now 64, woke every morning at 5:30 a.m. not to review financial reports, but to observe the herd's morning routine in Dry Valley. Luna, around 10 years old, had become not only the herd's leader, but his most constant, silent companion. The sanctuary now housed 31 Mustangs, rescued from similar situations. The Marina Castillo Foundation had saved horses injured by illegal hunters, abandoned due to drought, and separated from their herds by urban developments. Robert knew each animal personally, their personalities, their stories. "Dad, you're different." Helen, his ex-wife, watched Robert interact with an orphaned foal that had arrived the previous week. They had rekindled their relationship 6 months prior, not as husband and wife, but as 2 people who could finally share Marina's memories without pain. Different how? Present. Truly present. She touched his arm. Marina would be proud. Robert watched Luna approach. The mare had visibly aged in the last 2 years. Some graying appeared on her muzzle, and she moved with the weary dignity of one who had lived a full but intense life. Wild Mustangs rarely lived past 18 years, and Robert knew that every day with her was a gift. That afternoon, he received a visit from a man he recognized immediately. Charles Miller, 58, owner of a construction company that had recently evicted 40 families from a rural settlement to build a shopping mall. Robert had seen the news in the paper and painfully recognized himself in the man. "I came because I heard about your work," Charles said, clearly uncomfortable. "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. She says I've become a monster." Robert led him to the enclosure where Luna rested in the shade with 3 foals. "How old is your daughter?" 25. She's a lawyer, Works for the district attorney's office defending families in land disputes. Charles laughed bitterly. Ironic, isn't it? It's not ironic, it's a chance. Robert told his story. Not the romanticized version he would give in interviews, but the raw truth. Lost years, ignored calls. The daughter who died trying to repair the damage he had caused. Charles listened in silence, and when Robert finished, there were tears in his eyes. "It's too late for me," Charles murmured. "I thought the same thing," Robert replied. "But look around you." He gestured to the herd grazing in peace. "All of this was born from the worst pain of my life. I can't bring Marina back, but I can honor who she was." How do I do that? Start by stopping. Stop causing harm. Then see what you can fix. 3 months later, Robert learned that Charles had cancelled the mall project and allocated the land for affordable housing. His daughter still hadn't forgiven him, but at least she had started answering his calls again. On the 3rd anniversary of Marina's death, Robert organized a simple ceremony in Dry Valley. Veterinarians, sanctuary staff, some families who had been helped by the foundation attended, and Luna, of course. When everyone left, Robert remained alone with the mayor at the spot where Marina used to sit to write her letters. Luna approached and rested her head on his chest, as she did every afternoon. "She knew, didn't she?" Robert murmured. "Marina knew you would find me when I needed you." Luna looked at him with those deep eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets. Then she moved away to join the other horses, leaving Robert with the certainty that regardless of the time they had left, none of them were alone anymore. Robert closed his eyes and felt Marina's presence in the wind rustling through the trees. His daughter was at peace, and he, finally, was too. On the 5th anniversary of Marina's death, Robert woke to a phone call that would change his final chapter. "Mr. Castillo, this is Dr. Evans. Luna isn't doing well." Robert drove to Dry Valley with a heavy heart. He found Luna lying near the creek, where Marina used to photograph the horses. The mare, now around 12 years old, was breathing with difficulty. Her body, which had always been strong and imposing, seemed fragile in the golden morning light. "It's age, Robert," Dr. Evans explained gently. "She lived a full life for a wild Mustang. Most don't reach 12 years in the wild." Robert knelt beside Luna. She lifted her head heavily and looked at him with those eyes he had known on a misty road 5 years earlier. There was a serenity there he couldn't explain, as if she knew her work was complete. For 3 days, Robert didn't leave her side. He slept on the stable floor, fed her by hand, talked to her about Marina, about regret, about gratitude. On the morning of the 3rd day, Luna died peacefully, her head in the lap of the man she had helped save. Luna's funeral brought people Robert hadn't even expected. Families who had lost land to him and then recovered it. Former employees he had coldly fired and then rehired with apologies. Children from rural schools who visited the sanctuary to learn about wild horses. "She wasn't just a horse," Helen said during the simple ceremony. "She was the bridge between who you were and who you became." Robert buried Luna high on the hill where Marina used to sit and write. He placed a simple plaque, "Luna, 2013-2025. She taught me that it's never too late to come home." 6 months later, Robert was on the porch of the house in Dry Valley when he saw a young mare approach the gate with 2 foals. It was Luna's daughter, born in the sanctuary, raised in freedom, but with the same white crescent-shaped mark on her forehead. Robert smiled. Life went on. The horses remained free. The foundation had grown and now operated in 3 states, saving hundreds of animals a year. More importantly, he had reconnected with Helen, repaired dozens of injustices, and created a legacy that honored his daughter's memory. That night, Robert wrote a letter to be opened after his death. "If you are reading this, my work here is done. For 55 years, I built a life based on fear. Fear of poverty, fear of vulnerability, fear of feeling. In recent years, I learned that building a life based on love is infinitely harder, but it is the only thing that truly matters. I couldn't be the father Marina deserved when she was alive, but I tried to be the man she believed I could become. If this place and these animals saved a single family from the pain I caused, then it was worth every minute. To whoever takes over the foundation. The horses will teach you what you need to know about family, about loyalty, about being present. Listen to them. They know. And if you ever find an injured animal on the road, stop. Not because it's easy, not because it's convenient, but because sometimes our second chance comes disguised as a responsibility we don't want to take on. Thank you, Luna. Thank you, Marina. Thank you for not giving up on me. Robert put the letter in the drawer and went out to say goodnight to the horses. Luna's daughter approached and rested her head on his shoulder as her mother used to do. He smiled. The story continued. This story is about regret. About words we didn't say, calls we didn't make, people we left behind while chasing things that don't matter. If you have someone you love, but are distant from due to pride, anger, or being too busy, don't wait to need a wild horse to teach you what truly matters. Call, write, show up. Because unlike Robert, you still have time. And if this story reminded you of someone, or if you believe in second chances, share it. We never know who needs to hear this today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.